Hi, it's me, Christina. I'm here with my friend Sally Kirkman, and we're about to investigate another very important astrological question. This month, it's why is Keanu Reeves the internet boyfriend? Sally, why is Keanu Reeves the internet boyfriend? And shall I get up I'll put his chart up on the screen.
Yeah, let's have a look. I mean, it's, that's the name he's been given, isn't it? The internet's boyfriend. So what's that about? Why does the world of social media, the internet, what's this great love for Keanu? What is it about him? And can we see it in his chart?
Yeah, well, here's his chart, 2nd of September, 1964. Now, this is a rectified time, I think, according to Astro Databank. So take the time with a pinch of salt. 541. He was born in Beirut. And that gives him Pluto rising, right?
It does. It does, which is, he has, one of the things we know about him, he has experienced tragedy in his life, hasn't he?
So I'm not the expert on the private life of Keanu Reeves, but I think that he's had some losses, hasn't he?
He's had some losses, yeah. And that's it's quite a tough stellium, isn't it? Sun, Mercury, Uranus, Pluto, 12th house on the ascendant. That feels to me very kind of internal, having to deal with kind of abandonment, maybe. I mean, his father abandoned the family when he was very young. That Uranus-Pluto, born on that Uranus-Pluto conjunction, which was so big in 1964 to 1967. But for him, it's very personal. So, Uranus is that cutting off, and Pluto is the planet of loss. So, there was a significant start in his life that was, you could say tragic or will have influenced him. What do you think about that, Christina?
A couple of things. First of all, I think that he plays Plutonic characters really often. In his, when his roles, like in The Matrix, that he is playing someone who is it's a Plutonic character. He literally goes into this underworld, and he is dressed in black, and wears the sunglasses, and he looks like Pluto. And I don't watch the John Wick's franchise because it's too violent for me. But I find it really interesting that he plays these quite violent characters, but it's controlled violence. And I think that is very Pluto as well. And that he's, but he seems to be this very soft person underneath. And I think the reason that he's the internet boyfriend is because of his sympathy for the underdog, right? Yeah. He's you see, and that's the Chiron in Pisces on the descendant. And I think that's kind of one of the keys, is that it's like somehow one feels that he might be really nice to you if you met him. He wouldn't be all kind of superstar-y, yet at the same time he's got that superstar charisma, Pluto rising. Really amazing sort of charisma, sex appeal, directness that Pluto gives you, and yet there it is with opposite this Chiron. And to me, Chiron in Pisces, it was in Pisces for a long time. Most people born in the 60s have that. But his is right, as you say, it's right on that very personal axis. So he's got, and I think that's the other reason he's the internet boyfriend, is because he has generational aspects, powerful generational aspect, which is the Uranus-Pluto conjunction, opposite Chiron, but it's on this personal axis. So he somehow is appealing to large groups of people because of that.
Yeah. And the sun, it's on the axis and pulls in his sun, doesn't it? His sun in Virgo, and Mercury, the ruling planet, the chart ruler. So he embodies that in some way. He knows how to do that. And he comes across, I mean, he's a super Virgo, isn't he? Whether the time's right or not, even with those 4 planets in Virgo. And Virgo is it's the kind of planet of the everyday. It's the planet of humility, the star sign of humility, I should say. I'm just calling it a planet, Virgo, the star sign of humility. And I think that's, you see clips of him traveling on the tube, and, once on the tube, he just stood up to offer a woman his seat. So there's this, he's just he looks like, comes across as an everyday guy, who's willing to sort of just be lovely. And it's not a starry chart, this, by any means, is it? There's something very powerful, like you say, with those generational planets across the ascendant descendant. But this is actually a very introvert chart.
Yeah, and a lot of actors are introverts, aren't they? Yeah. I mean, there's a kind of actor who's an introvert. I think the other huge thing in this chart is, aside from that opposition, is the grand trine between the moon, the watery grand trine, which again is very sympathetic, very flowing, very gentle. And that is between the moon, Chiron, and Neptune, right? Yeah. So Neptune is movies and glamour. So he has the glamour. And it's this, it's through Scorpio, it's the Scorpio glamour. And that makes a sextile with his Pluto rising. Of course, Neptune and Pluto are often in sextile. But again, because it's on his ascendant, it makes it much stronger. And then it makes this trine, that Neptune, that glamorous Neptune to Chiron, and it makes a trine to the moon. So all of those things are singing together quite subtly, and it gives him this kind of, I think one of the things that people respond to is this feeling that he seems sensitive. Yeah. He seems a very sensitive person. That may be an illusion, but he seems like a very sensitive guy, and that's that powerful moon in Cancer. It's in its own sign, making a conjunction to Mars, and therefore also and he's also got the Mars-Venus conjunction, which can be very attractive. I think it can make for very attractive people. Yeah. But that grand trine is really singing in his chart as well. And earthing that is also the Jupiter in Taurus in the 9th. So there's a kind of practicality about him too. So he's not too kind of floaty.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I think, one of I was looking kind of what people have picked up on and why they love him so much. And there was a famous, he was on Drew Barrymore's show, I think. And at one point he said, if you don't fight for your love, what kind of love do you have? And then went really like, gosh, I've said such an amazing thing, and almost tried to dismiss it. And I think that, that was then people went mad for that. Like, what a kind of incredibly sort of romantic, passionate thing to say. And the way he is going about these things, there is a humility. He doesn't quite sort of own it. There's no arrogance there in him. So, yeah, I mean, you can see that when you're pointing out that grand water trine in particular. I mean, he's tapped into sort of romance, art, beauty with that.
Yeah, he's kind of missing the arrogance gene, isn't he?
Yeah.
And or the entitlement thing. That's not really in this chart. There's not really a huge sense of entitlement or arrogance. And I think that's another thing that's very attractive. So in sum, why is he the internet boyfriend? It's humility, which we get from Virgo. It's being somehow tapped in, connected to a generational aspect, I think is actually quite important. The other thing is actually moon in the 11th house can just be popularity, can't it? And it's that moon in Cancer in the 11th house that people are seeing, that soft, sensitive moon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And North Node in the 10th also helps again with popularity, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of empathy there, isn't there? There is. I mean, the other, just to talk about the other thing that he went through was with, I think it was Jennifer Sim, his girlfriend, who had a stillborn baby at 8 months, their baby. And then she died a couple of years later. That was in the early 90s. It was actually when Pluto was around his IC.
That's sad.
So it's very sad. It's very sad. So, and he doesn't kind of, I think the other thing, he doesn't, there was a meme, there was a picture of him eating a sandwich in a park, looking very sad. And it's like, again, he owns his sadness as well, which I think is very, I mean, people really kind of identify with that when someone owns their sadness. So, he doesn't, it's kind of, he shows himself, he wears his heart on his sleeve. And that's perhaps all this stellium on the ascendant. You see all of him as well, which draws us to him.
Yeah, I'm not sure we see all of him. Because I would say that stellium is in the 12th, even though it's on the ascendant. And there must be some, I mean, so again, interestingly enough, having the sun in the 12th house can often mean that you're kind of more comfortable in that. That's the house of the collective unconscious, isn't it? So he's in there, he's in the collective unconscious with that sun there. And it can mean it's a place that you flourish. All those politicians with the sun in the 12th, as we know, who are popular, they're elected, right? It's another popularity thing, surprisingly enough. But it can also be a house of self-loss and self-undoing.
Yeah.
So I think one of the reasons that he's appealing to certain people is because he feels lost. And I think that's the 12th house sun sometimes, that feeling that he's a lost person and that he just needs to be taken care of and given a really, he needs to be looked after. And that's probably not true at all, but that's what it seems like. And there's also this difference in, it's interesting in what things a person seems like and who he really is are, maybe quite different things. I think that our feeling about him is that, it's what you see is what you get. He's a genuine person.
Yeah.
And I think that's the Pluto rising as well. It's very hard not to be real if you've got Pluto rising and say truthful things. And with that, one of the things I note with him is that he's not a sort of gabby person. He doesn't talk a lot. And in his characters, when he's best in his movies, he basically doesn't say very much. And that's partly, you can see that in the Mercury retrograde, also the Pluto rising. There's a sort of tacitness about him. So it's easy to project onto Keanu Reeves. That's the other thing, I think, with all that 12th house stuff, which is very Piscean to have so much stuff in the 12th house. And that glamorous Neptune is that we can, people can project onto that beautiful surface.
I kind of find it interesting too. I mean, he has, the element that's missing in his chart is fire. He's almost all earth and water. But there's both the sort of significant women we know about in his life, Jennifer Sim and his current girlfriend Alexandra Grant. They're both fire signs. Kind of some of the movies he does, like Speed, such a that bus that was on the constant move, and the John Wicks. It's partly Pluto, but there feels Mars. This kind of, he actually can tackle these sort of action characters as well. And I think that's often the way when you have this missing element in your chart, that you're kind of attracted to that which you lack in some way. So I see that very much in his career and in his personal life as well.
Yeah, it's interesting that that film Speed and also The Matrix, I'm just thinking that he has, he's paired with a woman, and that actually works quite well with him, for him in those characters. And you're right about the lack of no fire. There's no fire, and he only really has the North Node in air. as well, which is, so he's very lacking in those elements. So he must constantly be seeking them out. And so, he's melancholic, he has a melancholic temperament, as the earth water combination.
Yeah.
So he must get the air and stuff from actually acting, I would think.
Yeah. Air and fire.
Mm-hmm.
That being pulled out into the world, but you sense that he also wants to retreat privately as well, with his chart. I mean, he was named, I think it was in 2022, one of the most influential people in the world by Time magazine, which is quite extraordinary to be on that list. And that's not about, it's very often not about kind of force and power, that acknowledgement. It's about there's something soft about the ideas or the person you are. And I mean, I see that very much in Mercury is so powerful in his chart, next to the Sun retrograde, ruler of his Virgo ascendant, Gemini midheaven, if the time's correct. So yeah, I mean, sort of this softness, humility about him. I mean, I think he is the internet's boyfriend, because I would love to sit down with him, get to know him, chat. Do you know what I mean? There's something about him that you just imagine. I suppose it's this imagining, and like you say, this projection.
I think people project onto him. I'm sure he's lovely as well, actually, but I think that he is a great thing. He gets projected on a lot. Yeah. I mean, it helps that he's very beautiful, which again, I often think that Venus in Cancer is good. It's helpful for that. And Venus Mars conjunction, he's appealing to men and women. That I think that's also interesting, that he's not just a pretty face, right?
But someone who doesn't seem that bothered with the way he looks. He can come across quite sort of shaggy and shabby, I want to say, with the way he looks, and he's just as happy hanging out in his trackies.
Does he wear trackies? Oh no.
Sorry, I said trackies.
I hope he doesn't. I hope he has really nice whatever. Yeah.
He hangs out in his trackies, Christina, just saying.
Does he? Okay, now I know. Oh, Keanu. There were my projections of Keanu in a pair of, satin silk pajamas. Dashed. I think we've summed up why he's the internet boyfriend.
I do too.
Thanks,
see you next
Keanu.
time. Take care. Bye.
Bye.